In a war that has gripped the world's attention for nearly 2 weeks, Iran and Israel have found themselves locked in a devastating and unprecedented military conflict that escalated far beyond initial skirmishes. Over the past 13 days, both nations have unleashed some of the most advanced weapons in their arsenals, including hundreds of ballistic and hypersonic missiles. As of now, the death toll has exceeded 2,500 on both sides combined, with civilian casualties accounting for nearly 40% of the total. Infrastructure in key cities like Tel Aviv, Haifa, Isfahan, and Tabriz has suffered massive destruction, and satellite imagery shows entire neighborhoods leveled by targeted airstrikes and missile bombardments. The war, initially sparked by a controversial Israeli airstrike near Iran's southern border, rapidly escalated when Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, responded with a barrage of Shahab-3 and Imad ballistic missiles. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, not to be outdone, retaliated with Jericho-class missiles and intensive air raids using F-35 fighter jets. In a historic first, Iran deployed its newly developed Ghadir multi-warhead hypersonic missile, capable of splitting into multiple re-entry vehicles mid-flight and striking multiple targets simultaneously, overwhelming Israel's Iron Dome and David's Sling defense systems. At least 80 Ghadir missiles were launched, with reports indicating that over 60 successfully bypassed Israeli air defenses. Israel's response was equally fierce. The IDF launched over 500 missiles, including the Jericho-3, which has intercontinental capabilities. Israeli cyber units also launched digital attacks aimed at paralyzing Iran's energy grid and military command networks. Iranian media reported blackouts across major cities and disruptions in telecommunications, though Iran's cyber defense claimed to have neutralized 70% of the cyber intrusions. Internationally, tensions have reached a boiling point. The United Nations Security Council convened multiple emergency sessions, with Russia and China demanding an immediate ceasefire, while the United States, initially silent, finally intervened diplomatically after Iran launched missiles within 100 kilometers of a U.S. airbase in Jordan. U.S. President Donald Trump, returning to the world stage amid escalating tensions, brokered a temporary ceasefire. In a shocking televised statement, Trump declared, "The U.S. may not have started this war, but we will make sure it ends now, diplomatically and decisively." Iran's Supreme National Security Council issued a cautious approval of the ceasefire, but stated, "Our forces remain on full alert. We do not trust our enemies, but we agree to a ceasefire in the name of protecting innocent lives." Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed that Israel had accepted the Trump-brokered proposal, calling it a strategic pause, not a peace. Despite the ceasefire declaration, tension remains high. In the hours following the announcement, Israeli air defense sirens sounded again across Tel Aviv and Ashdod, prompting speculation that rogue factions or misfired rockets might still be active. Iran has denied any involvement in these incidents. Iranian state TV reported, "We have upheld our end of the ceasefire." Any provocations post-ceasefire are fabrications aimed at undermining regional stability. The war's impact is staggering. Over 700 buildings have been destroyed across Iran and Israel. At least 45 military installations reduced to rubble. Oil refineries in southern Iran have sustained heavy damage, triggering fears of an environmental disaster. Israel's Haifa port, a critical hub, is shut down indefinitely after a direct missile strike caused a fire that burned for over 12 hours. Humanitarian organizations are struggling to keep up with the scale of displacement and injuries. Over 600,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. Hospitals in both countries are overwhelmed, and critical medical supplies are running low. The Red Cross has called the conflict a humanitarian catastrophe in motion. Meanwhile, intelligence reports suggest that Iran may be accelerating construction work at its Arak and Fordo nuclear facilities, possibly as a contingency. While Tehran denies any intention of weaponization, satellite footage and analysis from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, show increased activity. In Israel, mass protests have erupted, with citizens demanding Netanyahu's resignation over what many see as a failed strategy that led the nation into one of the bloodiest wars in its history. Similar unrest brews in Tehran, though Iranian leadership enjoys comparatively higher approval due to the perception that they were provoked and have demonstrated strength. As the world watches nervously, analysts warn that this fragile ceasefire could collapse at any moment. The broader Middle East remains on edge, with Hezbollah in Lebanon and militias in Iraq declaring readiness to join the conflict if hostilities resume. The United States has repositioned 2 aircraft carrier groups in the Mediterranean as a deterrent. The next few days will be critical. While guns may be silent for now, the underlying issues that led to this war remain unresolved. Trust is in short supply, and both sides continue to view each other through the lens of deep suspicion. Whether this ceasefire marks the beginning of a broader peace process or just a brief pause before another storm depends on the diplomacy and restraint of the days ahead. For now, the world hopes, prays, and watches.